Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the White House today to be with us to celebrate Israel Independence Day. It's my pleasure to invite Ambassador David Friedman to the stage to begin the program. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, all of you, it is my pleasure to welcome you to what I believe is the very first time, I will leave it to the historians to confirm, but I believe it is the very first time, certainly the first time in recent memory and in my memory, that the White House has hosted a reception commemorating Israel Independence Day. I would like to welcome today His Excellency, the Israel Ambassador to the United States, Ron Dermer. As well as all the members of Congress who were able to attend today's ceremony, among them our beloved Senator Orrin Hatch, who will be addressing us today. I'd like to welcome Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. And of course, our host, the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. Just about a month ago, I experienced the greatest honor of my life. In this very room, I was sworn in as the United States Ambassador to the State of Israel. This extraordinary honor was twofold. My appointment reflected the enormous trust and confidence of a great friend and a courageous leader, Donald Trump. And the individual administering to me the oath of office was a man of unparalleled integrity and character, the Vice President of the United States. I have the highest regard for our Vice President. In a world that often seems to have lost its way, he is a beacon of moral clarity and a shining example of honor and decency. As Moses charged Joshua, he is strong and resolute in the pursuit of our American values, and he is, as we all know, a great champion of the State of Israel. It is my high honor to introduce our host, the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you all for being here. And on behalf of the First Family, welcome to the White House. I bring greetings from the President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump. On behalf of President Trump, just a few minutes ago, I had the distinct honor to wish a happy Independence Day to Prime Minister Netanyahu over the phone as we celebrate the 69th anniversary of the independence of America's most cherished ally, the Jewish state of Israel. I want to thank all the distinguished guests who are here and members of Congress who've made time to come to the White House this afternoon, and people representing a broad spectrum of Americans who all cherish the relationship that the American people have enjoyed throughout these 69 years with the people of Israel. It's humbling to be here with you on this remarkable and even a hallowed day. As Secretary Steven Mnuchin to Ambassador David Friedman. To Senator Orrin Hatch, who has been a great, great champion for Israel all these many years in the United States Senate. Distinguished members of Congress, including Congressman Peter King, who's with us today. the Republicans and Democrats who are gathered here, honored guests, my fellow friends of Israel, thank you. On behalf of the President of the United States, just thank you for being here today at the White House to celebrate this day, the anniversary of a moment that will be remembered for eternity. You're all here, all of you, regardless of your home, your creed, because on this day, the 5th day in the month of Iyar, in the Hebrew calendar in 1948, nothing short of a miracle occurred. On that day, in the ancient and eternal homeland of the Jewish people, the state of Israel was reborn in our country. On that day, the Jewish people's 2,000-year exile, the longest exile of any people anywhere, ended. And on that day, a prophecy literally came to pass. And I believe in my heart that God himself fulfilled his promise to his people. The Lord God tells us in the old book, "Behold, I will cause breath to enter into, and ye shall live." And Israel lives today. Today and every day, the state of Israel and her people bear witness to God's faithfulness as well as their own. How unlikely was Israel's birth? How much more unlikely has been her survival? And how confounding against all odds, both past and present, has been her thriving. Since the moment of their independence, the Israeli people have awed the world with their strength of will and their strength of character. They've turned the desert into a garden, scarcity into plenty, and the people of Israel have turned hope into a future of security and prosperity. And at all times, in war and in peace, the people of Israel, the Jewish people, have held their heads high. Every day, Israel takes the curses and slanders of too much of the world and turns them into blessings. The dignity of the people of Israel rebukes all who condemn them, not for what they do wrong, but they condemn them for what they do right. And under President Donald Trump, let me assure you of this: if the world knows nothing else, the world will know this: America stands with Israel. President Trump stands with Israel for the same reason that every freedom-loving American stands with Israel, because her cause is our cause. Her values are our values, and her fight is our fight. And President Donald Trump is a lifelong friend and supporter of the state of Israel and its people. You know, I've seen firsthand the president's deep affection for Israel and all who cherish her, and so has the world. Just last week, President Trump stood with Holocaust survivors during the National Days of Remembrance, and he declared, quote, "I will always stand with the Jewish people, and I will always stand with our great friend and partner, the State of Israel." For my part, my Christian faith compels me to cherish Israel, as well as our deep alliance and historical ties. The songs of the land of the people of Israel were the anthems of my youth when I was growing up. You know, my wife and I had the privilege of visiting Israel in 2004 and 2008, and we fulfilled a lifelong dream to bring all of our children to the Holy Land in December of 2014. It was a joy inexpressible. So let me say with confidence to all who are gathered here, President Trump stands without apology for Israel, and he always will. Just look at the actions our president has taken since he took office. The president named David Friedman to represent the United States of America in Israel. The president named Governor Nikki Haley to be America's ambassador to the United Nations. And the President of the United States, as we speak, is giving serious consideration to moving the American embassy in Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. To be clear, the President is also personally committed to resolving the Israeli and Palestinian conflict. Even now, we're making valuable progress toward the noble goal of peace. Thanks to the President's tireless leadership, momentum is building and goodwill is growing. And that while there will undoubtedly have to be compromises, you can rest assured, President Donald Trump will never compromise the safety and security of the Jewish state of Israel, not now, not ever. President Trump has made it clear America stands alongside Israel, as friends and as allies, as together we confront those enemies who threaten our people and all that we hold dear. Since the moment of their nation's birth, there's hardly been a day when the people of Israel have not lived without war, or the fear of war, or the grim reality of terror. Know today that our prayers for the safety of the people of Israel, each and every day, go from the hearts of the American people to heaven. And know that Israel does not stand alone. Today, under President Donald Trump, America's support for Israel's security is at record levels. And in President Trump, America has a leader who will call our enemies by their name. And I want to promise you, as the fight even goes on now in the precincts around Mosul in Iraq, even in northern Syria and Afghanistan, this president is determined to keep his promise to the American people. ISIS is on the run, and we will hunt down and destroy ISIS and terrorist organizations at their source so they can no longer threaten our people, our allies, and our most cherished ally, Israel. And under President Donald Trump, America will stand strong in the face of the leading state sponsor of terrorism. This administration has put Iran on notice. America will no longer tolerate Iran's efforts to destabilize the region and jeopardize Israel's security. Under President Donald Trump, the United States of America will not allow Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. This is our solemn promise to you, to Israel, and to the world. History attests that enmity toward the Jewish people often turns from evil thought to evil action. The state of Israel bears witness to this truth. On this day, so many years ago, only 3 years after the horrors of the Holocaust, Israel was given life by a people who had looked into the eye of the angel of death. The Jewish people had persevered through history's darkest hour. For in that darkness shine the light of faith, of hope, and of love. It was faith that led the Jewish people to return to their ancient homeland. It was hope that spurred them to strive with all their strength for a brighter future. And it was love for each other and a love for freedom that has inspired the Jewish people to greatness at the hour of Israel's birth and every hour since. And so today we celebrate and we marvel at all that Israel and her people have accomplished. We praise their vigilance and resolve in the face of crisis and condemnation, and for their enduring courage in this time of widening challenges and unknowable threats. And today we remember the sacrifice of those who gave so much for Israel's existence, and for those brave men and women who stand sentry at this very hour. Israel is an eternal testament to the undying fortitude of the Jewish people, to the unfathomable power of human freedom, and to the unending faithfulness of God. Indeed, though Israel was built by human hands, it's impossible not to sense that just beneath her history lies the hand of heaven. For as God tells us in his word, speaking to his people so long ago, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. I believe these words are as true today as they were in millennia past, and so I say with confidence, with your help, with God's help, through the strength and courage of the people of Israel and all who cherish her, and with President Donald Trump in the White House, the best days for Israel and America are yet to come. Thank you very much. May God continue to bless and protect Israel and her people, and may God bless America.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice President, for those inspiring words. I have to say that my father was a distinguished rabbi who passed away some 12 years ago, and as I listened to the Vice President, I heard his words as well. Those were extraordinarily inspiring words, and I'm very grateful for them. Ladies and gentlemen, Chag Yom Ha'atzmaut Sameach L'chol Ohavei Medinat Yisrael. Happy Israel Independence Day to all those who love and admire the State of Israel. My heartfelt thanks to President Trump and Vice President Pence for initiating what we hope will be a joyous annual event for many years to come. Some 3,000 years ago, the great biblical warrior and poet, King David, established the United Kingdom of Israel with Jerusalem as its capital. Over the millennia, the Jewish people in Israel faced calamity after calamity, including assaults from such ancient regional powers as Rome, Syria, Egypt, Greece, and Babylonia. But a courageous core always persevered, overcoming physical threats, poverty, and other challenges to remain in their beloved homeland. For some 400 years prior to World War I, Jews in Israel were subjects of the Ottoman Empire. With the conclusion of the First World War, that came to an end and a new Jewish Commonwealth began to take form. By 1948, the Jews in the land of Israel, weakened by the atrocities of the Holocaust but determined never again to return to those dark days, established a provisional government with the endorsement of the United Nations. On May 14th, 1948, corresponding to the 5th day of Iyar on the Hebrew calendar, today's date on the Hebrew calendar, David Ben-Gurion read Israel's Declaration of Independence from a museum in Tel Aviv. The world waited with bated breath to see if any nation would recognize the nascent state of Israel. The world would not have to wait long. Within minutes, President Harry Truman, against the advice of many within his own government, offered the endorsement by the United States of the reborn State of Israel. And as a testament to the subsequent unanimous support of the United States for America's ever-deepening relationship with the State of Israel, we are now here today celebrating Israel's Independence Day at the White House. Israel's birth was not easy. Many of its citizens paid the ultimate price for their country's freedom in both full-scale and limited wars from 1948, 1957, 1956, 1967, 1973, 1982, 2008, 2012, and 2014, not to mention intifadas and countless terrorist attacks. The State of Israel remembered her fallen just yesterday on Yom HaZikaron, Israel's Remembrance Day. But today, 69 years to the day from its declaration of independence, Israel stands as a first world nation, a beacon of freedom and democracy, and a world superpower in science and technology. As it was in 1948, Israel is and always will be a cherished ally of the United States. With an unbreakable bond based upon shared values and commitments, mutually aligned interests, and perhaps most important, extraordinary friendship among its people. If King David were alive today, I have no doubt that he would proclaim in the words of Psalm 118 that he wrote so many thousand years ago, Zeh hayom asah Hashem nagila v'nismecha bo. This is the day the Lord has created. Let us celebrate and rejoice. It's now my pleasure to introduce the first of our two remaining speakers. My counterpart, the Israeli ambassador to the United States, His Excellency Ambassador Ron Dermer. In my short tenure as the United States ambassador to Israel, I've had the opportunity to work closely with Ambassador Dermer. What I found most striking about his approach to diplomacy is his continuous search for the win-win scenario, the approach that best serves both of our nations. I look forward to many years of success in working with Ambassador Dermer to strengthen the relationship between our two great countries. It is my pleasure to introduce Ambassador Ron Dermer.
I want to thank Vice President Pence for hosting this special and even maybe historic event, and for his profound friendship to the Jewish people and to the Jewish state. Now, you saw that friendship when he rolled up his sleeves to help repair a desecrated Jewish cemetery in St. Louis. You heard that friendship in his moving speech to AIPAC in March and in his speech today. And he has shown that friendship throughout his public life, as a congressman who was a steadfast defender of Israel, as a governor who signed the toughest anti-BDS legislation in the country, and now as vice president, as a vice president who is a true champion of the U.S.-Israel alliance. Now, on a personal level, I have known the vice president for many years. We have gone to a Pacers Heat game together, which the Pacers unfortunately won, forcing me to bear the humiliation of wearing a Pacers kippah all around Indianapolis the next day. We went to the Indy 500 together, where a driver named Knaan almost pulled off a miracle. And given our tendency to attend sporting events together, perhaps it is only fitting that the Vice President would invite me here to what I consider the first ever Yom Ha'atzmaut tailgate party at the White House. I want to thank the President pro tempore of the Senate, Senator who is here today, and you'll hear from him in a couple of moments. Senator Hatch has been a tremendous friend of Israel throughout his career and literally wears Israel close to his heart, literally. I also want to use this opportunity to congratulate once again my counterpart, the new U.S. Ambassador to Israel, David Friedman. As I told David last week, good ambassadors figure out the pulse of a country. Great ambassadors can feel the pulse of a country. And that's why David is going to be a terrific ambassador to Israel. Israel looks forward to your arrival in a couple of weeks, hopefully followed by the arrival of another unnamed senior U.S. official. I also want to recognize Jason Greenblatt. Jason, I think you'll agree with me that we have spent far too much time together over these last few months. You're only working on trying to bring peace to the Middle East. How hard can that be? I mean, why all these meetings? Just let's get on with it. But seriously, Jason, it is not every day that you meet someone in such a high-profile position who is such a mensch, and it is an absolute pleasure to work with you, so thank you. Now, usually I have to provide the biblical portion of the evening, but I think that was covered. And what I want to talk about today is a little bit about the relations between the United States and Israel. And I believe this event today in the White House opens a new chapter in the relations between our two countries. That relationship, as you know, began in this building 11 minutes after David Ben-Gurion declared Israel's independence in 1948, when President Truman became the first head of state to recognize Israel. And that moment was a great point of pride for President Truman throughout his life. In one speech, he even compared himself to Cyrus, the Persian king who had enabled the Jewish people to rebuild the Second Temple in Jerusalem. And to his everlasting credit, Truman did it against the vehement opposition of the State Department and then Secretary of State George Marshall. But contrary to what is commonly believed, Truman's recognition of Israel was not the beginning of a strategic alliance between our two countries. Far from it. The United States placed an arms embargo on Israel during our War of Independence. Israel fought the 1948 war with Czech rifles and the 1967 war with French planes because the U.S. wouldn't sell us the tools we needed then to do the job of defending ourselves. The truth is that for the first 20 years of our relationship, it was largely based on a moral commitment to Israel. The strategic alliance between our countries came in the wake of the Six-Day War and later after the Yom Kippur War. As Israel proved its prowess and resilience on the battlefield, American policymakers began to appreciate that Israel was not merely a moral cause, but a strategic asset that the United States sought to strengthen in order to help address the formidable challenges it faced in the Middle East. That was true for the last 2 decades of the Cold War, and that has been true since the rise of militant Islam as a force in our region and beyond. Today, the strategic relationship between our two countries stands, I believe, on the cusp of a new era. President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu both seek to upgrade our alliance and forge common policies to thwart the great dangers we face and to seize the great opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, in recent years, some have spoken of the demise of the special relationship between the U.S. and Israel. They were wrong then, and they are even more wrong now. Exactly 3 years ago, on Israel's Independence Day, I said I believe that Israel would be the most important ally of the United States in the 21st century, for 2 reasons. First, because the most dangerous security challenges facing the United States, I should say, will continue to emanate from the Middle East for a long time to come. In the coming years, Israel's importance to America as a reliable ally and a formidable military power in a very dangerous region is likely to become more critical, not less critical, for protecting America's security interests. Second, the 21st century is a century of knowledge, in which prosperity in the developed world will be driven primarily by a country's ability to innovate. There are 2 great centers of innovation in the world today. One is in Silicon Valley, and the second is in Israel. In the coming decades, Israel's value as a global technological power in agriculture, water, cyber, automated vehicles, and other areas will make it increasingly important for the prosperity of American companies and American citizens. But beyond security and prosperity, beyond the more closely aligned policies of our 2 administrations, I believe there are even deeper forces that will bring America and Israel closer together, like our shared values. The idea that all are created equal in the image of God, that no one is above the law, that compassion for the most vulnerable is a sacred obligation. Ideas which have been a moral compass for generations of Americans. Those ideas were first championed thousands of years ago by the prophets of the Jewish people, and today are fused in the national identity of the Jewish state. As these values come under further attack in a region where women face rampant discrimination, Christians are decapitated, minorities are decimated, gays are hanged, Israel will increasingly stand out as a beacon of humanity and decency that will bring our countries together. But above all, we will be brought together by a shared sense of destiny. Because America and Israel, as many people in here know, are not merely countries. We are causes. America has long been what Lincoln called the last best hope on earth, a beacon of opportunity for people across the world that is entrusted by history with securing liberty's future. Israel is the hope of the Jewish people, offering opportunity for all its citizens, Jewish and non-Jewish alike, and that is entrusted by history with securing the Jewish future. These causes imbue each country with a profound sense of purpose that complement and reinforce one another and engender a deep and abiding sense of solidarity. That is why tens of millions of Americans support Israel in a way they support no other country in the world. And that is why Israelis mourn America's tragedies and rejoice in America's triumphs like no other country in the world. That is why on Israel's Independence Day, so many Israelis also fly American flags outside their homes and on top of their cars, and why a celebration like this one can happen in the White House. On behalf of Israel, I want to thank President Trump, Vice President Pence, and the entire Trump administration for this profound expression of friendship. I am confident that working closely with you in the years ahead, the alliance between America and Israel will become stronger, deeper, and more powerful than ever. Chag Sameach.
Thank you, Ambassador Dermer. I notice everybody today is wearing a white shirt and a blue tie. I don't know if there's any significance to that. Prior to the Senate's vote on my nomination, I had the privilege to meet with approximately 40 members of the United States Senate, a process that spanned several weeks. One day, I was brought to a beautiful, ornate door adorned with a magnificent mezuzah, the traditional encased parchment containing words from the Torah that is affixed to a Jewish doorpost. I was unaware that the Senate had opened a synagogue. It turns out the Senate had not opened a synagogue, nor should it open a synagogue, but that mezuzah guarded the door of someone every bit as divine, Senator Orrin Hatch. Senator Hatch is the longest-serving Republican senator in the history of the United States, and his accomplishments are so numerous and exemplary that I could not possibly do justice to them. What I can say is that he has led the Senate for more than 40 years in pro-Israel advocacy, and we are fortunate indeed to have him with us today. It is my distinct honor to introduce our last speaker, Senator Orrin Hatch.
Well, thanks, my friend. I really appreciate you, and I'm so happy that you're in the position that you're in. I have to say, I've enjoyed every minute of this, and I'm really glad that President Trump and the Vice President have not only permitted this to happen, but have asked that it happens here in the White House. And I really appreciate this on behalf of all of you who support Israel so strongly. There's nobody supports Israel more than I do. And of course, in Utah, we have a large freshwater lake 40 miles south of a large salt lake. And people think there's quite a parallel between Israel and Utah because of that. But it isn't because of that there's a parallel. It is that the vast majority of people in Utah, at least 60% of them, are Mormons, who actually are the strongest supporters of Israel outside of Jewish people in this country and in the world. We love Israel. We study what we call the Old Testament. We review it virtually every other year, completely. We believe in you. We support you. And I'm honored to be here at this invitation of the Vice President. I love participating in Hebrew holidays and traditions, so much so that I've been called the most Jewish Mormon in Congress. Now, I'm proud of that moniker, and coincidentally, I turned 83 just a couple of weeks ago. Which means that you're all invited to my adult bar mitzvah. Humor aside, I have a profound admiration for the Jewish people. As a symbol of my respect, I do wear a mezuzah around my neck, which I've worn for better than 40 years. I never take it off. I take it off at night. I may have missed 2 days in 40 years. And I wear that just as a constant reminder of my obligation to the people of Israel and to you folks who support Israel so much as do I. It's a symbol of my respect. And all I can say is the mezuzah serves as a symbol of my commitment to the state of Utah, and it represents the affinity that I hold for the Jewish people. I truly love you. I just think you're terrific. I pray for you, and I will always, always fight for you. Among the greatest honors of my public service is when I had the privilege of representing the United States Senate in a special visit to the Holy Land last year. There, my admiration for Israel only grew as I met with the ranking government officials, including Prime Minister Netanyahu. Bibi and I are close friends, and our relationship has only deepened over the years. Near the end of my visit, I had the opportunity to participate in a wreath-laying ceremony at Yad Vashem to commemorate Holocaust Remembrance Day. At the behest of my dear friend, the late Elie Wiesel, I serve on the board of directors for the U.S. Holocaust Museum. So taking part in this special ceremony was a particularly moving experience for me. This solemn event only renewed my commitment to ensure that the world never forgets the atrocities perpetrated against the Jewish people in the darkest hours of human history. I care deeply for the people of Israel and for all of you, and I will do anything in my power to help to protect them. The U.S.-Israel relationship is unique among nations. Together, we share a time-tested alliance, one refined in adversity and fortified by years of friendship. We face similar threats, but we face them together, knowing full well that we are never alone in our fight against the forces of evil. Indeed, we are the strongest of allies, and I don't intend to ever see that change. But time has proven that our two countries are more than mere allies. We are friends. We are friends in the truest sense of the word. We are friends in war, and we're friends in peace. We are friends in freedom, and we're friends in liberty, bound together by the same principles of pluralism that unite our enemies against us. And today, as friends, we celebrate the independence of a great nation. Today, we commemorate the creation of the modern state of Israel, an event which, though it occurred only a few decades ago, was millennia in the making. Indeed, the actual history of your nation far predates the founding of my own. And in the Bible, we learn that the history of your people stretches as far back as time itself. An understanding of the depth and richness of the Jewish experience gives context and perspective to the celebration of Israel's independence. Yes, today we celebrate the strength of Israel's democracy, that great bulwark against despotism in the Middle East. Yes, we remember the courage and resolve of the country's founders. And yes, we commemorate the events that led to the establishment of this modern state. But more broadly, we celebrate the triumph of the Jewish people and their invaluable contributions to Western society. In the United States, we esteem our founding fathers as the authors of modern democracy, but the people of Israel can go a step further. Their forefathers were among the primary architects of Western civilization. Through their teachings in the Torah and in other religious texts, the ancient Israelites laid the moral and intellectual groundwork that made the great American experiment possible in the first place. Without the moral wisdom of the Hebrew prophets and the contributions of classical philosophy, there would have been no West and there would have been no America. When I was a young man, I played the violin. I became a very fine boxer because of that. I was a tough kid. I was 6'2" and 147 pounds. But I learned how to, because of that, my parents were very poor, but they were able to scrape together $18.75 to get season passes to the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra during the whole season. And I would go to every one of those, sitting in the highest positions in peanut heaven, and saw all the greatest artists, most all of whom were Jewish. Everybody from Roberta Peters to Rubinstein, you name them, they were just absolutely, Horowitz, all of them, absolutely a joy to me. And it was one part of my education that was done well. But I have to say that if we hadn't had the contributions of classical philosophy and all the other things that the Jewish people brought to us, there would have been no America. So today we celebrate not only the founding of the Jewish state, but the immeasurable good of the Jewish people. Without you, the world would know little of progress and even less of freedom. Truly, you are a chosen people. Thank you for bringing light to our world. I want you all to know that a number of years ago I took a delegation to Moscow, and we arrived late at night. It was on a Sabbath evening. It was late at night for us, it wasn't late at night for them. And I insisted that they take us to downtown Moscow where the Jewish people were congregated, out on the plaza. They said, we won't do it, the State Department said. I said, yes, you will. They said, you can't do it. It would be an insult to the Soviets. I said, good. I said, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it with or without you. So just get on the phone and get the cars, and we're going to go. So we did. And there were about 150 people there. Well, thank you. I didn't think that was an applause line, but there were about 150 to 200 people there. Of course, there were KGB agents intermingled with them. And they were so happy to see someone from America who's willing to come down and be seen with them. I'm sure we caused an international incident with that, but the fact of the matter was that at that particular point, I made a big fuss about Anatoly Sharansky with the Soviets. And when we were there last May in Israel, they had a big celebration, Yad Vashem, and they seated me in the front row in this huge congregation. And when Bibi Netanyahu went to go, he nodded to me. We're great old friends. And following him was none other than Anatoly Sharansky, who came over to me and hugged me with tears in his eyes. I love that man. I love Bibi. I've loved every Jewish prime minister, regardless of how much different they all were. They were all exceptional people, from Menachem Begin right on down to today. You've never had a better one than Bibi Netanyahu, I'll tell you that. But they were all great men. And I really appreciate it. I just wish that I had met the great woman prime minister, which I hadn't had the privilege of doing. Let me just close by saying, I admire you folks. I love you folks. I want to be there for you folks. I am going to be there for you folks as long as I live. And I'm just grateful that I had this great privilege of coming and associating with you, catching the spirit of all of you people. It comes through. It's a spirit of freedom. It's a spirit of joy. It's a spirit of love. But above all, a spirit of freedom. God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending this historic event. May God bless the State of Israel. May God bless the United States. And may God bless the enduring, unbreakable bond between them. Thank you very much.